Just having a couple thoughts this morning. Thinking about racial equality and inequality, because, of course, to have an inequality, you've got to have an inequality at some point. But to have them coexist on such crazy levels, even within our own country, it's hard to understand, because you have a lot of people that are racially motivated, and they feel a strong connection to their race because of their culture or their upbringing or the commonality of feeling downtrodden. And I'm not saying that it's just a feeling. I'm saying that it's also it exists within not just one society but multiples. And why is that? How is that? I believe, and this is a personal opinion, that most of what is occurring is because of people like me. The fact that we have all of these advancements, that we see people as who they are, but we still see inequality in hiring practices and education and historical thought about different races. And if we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of that, I believe that people who share the feelings that I have are to blame. And this is why. I try my best to not see people's race as an important factor in who they are. I try not to, and I use the word try because at some point stereotypes are so driven into you at a young perspective that you feel like, oh, well, everybody that has this color of skin or a face that looks this way, well, obviously they've got to act this way, or they've got to like this, or they've got to have this religion. And so you try and beat that out of yourself. But in that correction is where I think we've made the interesting part. And I hate to just keep throwing these paradigms out, but an equal amount of progress, but ignorance is part of that progress. It's like we still have Black History Month. Why do we still have Black History Month? It's because we haven't included Black history into history, especially in the United States. We relegate, it's like, okay, so there's Harriet Tubman, there's George Washington Carver, there's Martin Luther King, and if you have an extremely, quote, progressive, unquote, teacher, they might even dare to say a word like Malcolm X. And good for you. I'm glad that you're bringing it up. But it needs to be woven into the fabric of the whole discussion. Not just, oh, holy crap, there was a slave trade and it was bad. No, there's more to it than that. It's a nuanced discussion. And the reaction, I guess, we took all these tiny baby steps for 100 years. Tiny baby steps. Okay, they can come into the diner, but they have to have their own room. Okay, they can come into the diner, but they can't sit at the counter. Okay, they can come into the diner, but they can't sit at a table with whites. We slowly chipped away at this stuff, and then all of a sudden there was this quantum shift. And I'm not sure if it's tied directly to the hippie movement. I believe it's more tied to the Vietnam War. I need to check my own thought process, but when you had what was not ill perceived, it was accurate, that there was a definite predilection of the draft board to go after minorities in that draft. And I think that those people didn't mix with the whites there, and we started seeing, hey, these guys are not only cool, and we don't want to just steal their music and their style and corrupt it and make it into lame white versions, but they're just people. And they have the same things that we do. They have desires, they have fears, they have loves, they have everything. And they're just as nuanced and just as interesting as we are. And so we took a couple giant leaps forward in race relations. But the problem is, when you take a giant leap, you're covering a lot of ground that might need to be covered in a different way. I mean, the whole look before you leap analogy has to come to mind, because we're not inspecting these areas, even philosophically. And if you dare to, you're a racist. But that's part of this, is that you should be. You need to be inspecting these tiny little portions. And that's how we get to the point where we start humanizing our own thoughts. And we reach beyond the program. We start seeing everyone as humans, as equals. And that's the difficult part, is that you'll find people in this country who are, huge Anglophiles, and they love the idea of England and blah, blah, blah. But you'll have the same group of people that are, I don't know what you would call it, Japanophile? It sounds disgusting. But I'm sure there's a better term for it. But those aficionados of the Japanese. But in the 90s, there was a huge movement within the black community to reconnect with Africa. And, wearing dashiki and, having kente cloth and all these cool things that you're like, holy shit, where did that come from? And it was such an interesting, positive movement, specifically vibrant for me as a kid from the Midwest. It came from the rap game, man. The hip-hop crews were like throwing out all sorts of different ideas and, connecting with roots that they didn't really understand. And I guess I've never really connected with my roots. I've never really thought of myself as a German American. I've always thought of myself as just an American. I'm just a bland person. And yeah, I've got a few things that I follow, but I gave up on the religion that I was raised with before I was confirmed. And, the culinary traditions of my family, they aren't wide-ranging and specialized or anything like that. They were dairymen and farmers. It was meat and potatoes. It was simple fare prepared well for people that needed to get out there and get to work. And don't get me wrong, we do have some tiny things that are our own, like Zemel, but I think the blandness and overall ennui I feel towards my own culture, because I'm not German, nor am I Mennonite. That's another contributing factor to this, is that it leaves me feeling like a man without a country in a lot of ways. I feel like I don't have a specific home when it comes to this fight. And even, I've got to give a huge amount of admiration to the black community in America, because out of not only slavery, out of the slavery that we imposed upon them, they created their own culture in this country. That's how long slavery went on in this country, hundreds of years, to the point that these people developed their own culture because they were being taken from their own. So they developed their own culture. Good on you. And then and they're some of the few to really do it. They moved on to other cities, to two cities, and they moved north, and those communities changed and morphed into their own. Like even Denver, the black community in Denver has their own nuanced I keep saying nuanced but their own interesting facets to their society, because like Denver, for God, it's got to be over a century, has been a hub for jazz. And that's amazing to me, because jazz, say what you want to, jazz is yet again another black form of music that we have corrupted. And it's really cool, to find out that Denver has that connection. And I've always been kind of I treat jazz kind of like I do sports. There's not a lot of I don't watch sports. I don't follow sports. If I'm at a sporting event, I can have a good time, just like a jazz concert. And there's only, I only follow heavy hitters in the jazz world. I'm not in deep by any means. Follow Miles, Bird, I'll name drop and act like I know what I'm talking about. But it's a very interesting time in America, because now the melting pot has become, in a lot of ways, almost like, instead of a stew where these big chunks of all these different ingredients are cooked together slowly, with the internet and social media, we're basically turning that into a grinder. And not to use that term connected with the internet, because that does count. It does come off as, hey, what the... But it's really interesting, because when you look at it, we're breaking down barriers that we're making it almost a monomolecular mix, because I can follow this Korean rapper, and I can learn all about his life and see how he lives day to day. I can see a guy that owns a store in Nairobi, and I can follow him. I can see everything he does in a day. And it's that kind of connectivity that it's really good, but it's also really bad, because we still haven't fundamentally changed our systems to cope with changing. We haven't really altered the way we look at things or the way we react. And if that's not going to change, not willing to change, we're going to have problems. We're going to continue to be confused and confusing. And hopefully we'll get past all this. We'll see that race is just like anything else that's a condition of birth. It's just something that was thrust upon you. And you didn't have any control over this. So why are you even beholden to it? I mean, it's an interesting concept, and we're going to have to, as a culture, as a country, as a world, we're going to have to explore a little bit more what we're doing to make a little bit of sense of it, because right now it's very confused. But hope y'all are having a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.